Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the Bears, Birds, and Brews podcast. This is a show about Chicago Bears, the Atlanta Falcons, and craft beer. My name is Asif Lakhani. My co-host is,
Bill Lalani.
our producer is,
Another Wazir.
and on today's episode, we have a lot to talk to you about, such as the NFL draft, is a thing that happened over the weekend. Some more of the Last Dance, which happened over the weekend. I guess some Ramadan, which started over the weekend. That's why I'm the only one drinking right now. I'm the quote unquote sacrificial lamb for my Perpetual Outrage that now there's going to tell you all about.
So Perpetual Outrage is an IPA from New Anthem, and it's sitting at 7% or 7.2. It has Amarillo, Citra, Columbus, and Mosaic hops. It looks really nice on color. Definitely.
Yeah, this is a beautiful looking beer right here. I totally dig this. I mean, if you're gonna sin, this is worth sinning for. I just want to say that
Right now that you're drinking, so I'm perpetually outraged right now that you're drinking. So
that I'm drinking.
no, that I'm.
Oh, that you're not drinking. Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm a sacrificial lamb, but you can be outraged, although you were a good person for that. I am perpetually outraged because of the Falcons and our draft from time to time, Usually because of the Falcons, not always because of the draft. Let's make that clear right now, and we will make that clear forward. Hopefully the intro on this sounded good, y'all. I hope so. We might have to do some fancy post editing.
I don't know. Why don't you try that? How's it taste? That's what I'm curious about.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is a really good beer. I mean, the mouthfeel is definitely thick, like an IPA, like you want your IPAs to be. You get a lot of the flavors that you're used to the Citra, the Mosaic. Like they shine. It's simple in that there's only a couple hops, right? That's what you read on the ingredient list. It's like very simple, but very bold and elegant. Like you could drink this at like a nice cocktail hour or something, but it's a good beer. It's like if you're a beer fan and you have a chance to get some New Anthem, I highly recommend it. Nabil, you want to tell them a little bit about where New Anthem's from?
Yeah, I mean, so I've had that one. I've had, everything New Anthem is dropping these days. It's really good. I think these came from Modern Hops, so they're available. I know they have it at Exhibit Ale in downtown Lawrenceville, but I think they're available at most bottle shops. I think they're in Wilmington, North Carolina.
That's right.
But
But
yeah,
double dry hop.
they're dropping amazing stuff. Like every IPA is a little different, but they're all really good. My favorite one's Throwing Shade. There was the one we had last week. So we've been doing a lot of New Anthem actually. So that kind of just shows how good they really are. That even in like quarantine, we're quarantining with New Anthem right now. So hey, that's a New Anthem. Throw it
Yeah, I mean, the name of this beer is, I like it. I thought it was fitting for today. One thing I just want to say about Wilmington, North Carolina is actually where Michael Jordan went to high school. And now that you weren't here last week, but we didn't find out until afterward that Wilmington is a home of both New Anthem and Laney High School. And of course, last week we talked about episodes 1 and 2 of The Last Dance. There you go. Bill's pointed out right there. And now that you got the shirt on, the vintage shirt, I want to talk more Last Dance. We'll do that. But we got other stuff to talk about, right?
Got a lot of people's first dance, as in the NFL draft. And
No, well,
no, we're gonna side pass the comment.
yeah.
It was an interesting draft. It was 100% virtual. Everyone was drafting from home. We saw most people were drafting from home, unless you're Jerry Jones, who drafted from a yacht, which was like on everyone else. Yacht. But we are going to go through these draft picks. I think we should start with the Falcons because, they were the only ones that had the two teams that we follow had a pick in round 1.
Well, I mean, I wanted the bill to start. The bill, if you're okay with that, just what you can take it wherever you want. You can talk Falcons, Bears. I feel like we haven't done Bears first in a while, but the bill, I'm really more curious to hear about what you think, whether it's Bears or Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, let's just go over the draft picks real quick. We can just go in order of the draft picks. First round, Falcons took AJ Terrell from Clemson, a cornerback. Second round, Falcons took Marlon Davidson, a defensive end from Auburn, who's just a giant human being. Bears
Bring that.
took Cole Kmet, who was the number one tight end in the draft, and Jalen Johnson, cornerback from Utah, cornerback, I said. And then after that, Falcons in the third round took probably going to be the number one jersey in Atlanta next year, Matt Hennessy. I can just see everyone in Hennessy jerseys. So that was the Falcons in the third. And then had a pair of fourth rounders getting Mikal Walker from Fresno State and Jalen Hawkins, a safety from California. And then the Bears came in the fifth round with 3 picks, Trevin Gibson, Kendall, who's a defensive end, a corner, Kendall Vidlor from Georgia Southern, so local kid, and a wide receiver from Tulane, Darrell Mooney. And then, seventh round, Atlanta took a punter, and the Bears took 2 offensive linemen, which seventh round, hey, prove it, I'll say your name afterwards. But yeah, so let's just talk draft in general first. Biggest surprise. What was the biggest surprise for you? Mine was the Packers taking a quarterback, which I'm scared, but still shocking.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually probably the biggest surprise for me too. Now that I think about it, really, the Falcons surprised me. I'll tell you that, but I think as far as 1 through, let's say 15, 16, whatever, I mean, it kind of played out like chalk, like you knew it would, and then when you realize that the Packers traded up for Jordan Love, I thought it was a little strange. I saw the kid's highlights. I didn't know much about him until I saw the name pop up on some boards, but I hadn't really seen him. And I saw the highlights, and frankly, I mean, I don't know that he actually is going to be good enough to follow Aaron Rodgers. But again, I mean, with a guy like that, you also are training him to learn behind a Hall of Famer, the second consecutive starting Hall of Fame quarterback that you've had in 25, 30 years, whatever. So anyway, that was a surprise for me. One thing I thought was really interesting too, kind of no trades happened, very few trades.
Right. I think that's Zoom, I think that was mainly because they were worried about they weren't able to talk to each other as much. We kind of predicted that, especially with our drinking game, because we were saying take a shot for every trade. I think less than 15 trades throughout the 3 days.
It was definitely one of the least traded, if you will, NFL drafts in a few years, one of the record lows. I also think a part of that too, in the bill is it did go chalk, I think if you draw up your mock draft and I think you have a realistic idea, within the NFL, knowing who GMs are personally and what teams are inside, a little bit more intel on them, they're going to take this guy. Everybody knew Burrow was going 1, Chase Young was going 2nd, but you still, I assume, go down your board and say, okay, if every team does what it's going to do. And so I think, once you get to 8, 9 picks and it's chalk, and it's okay, well, then there's not much trading to be done because we've kind of planned for this scenario already. It's probably the first plan that you have and you roll out. I thought it was interesting, though, and here's actually a point of contention for me if we're going to talk about the Falcons draft. So the Falcons drafted AJ Terrell 16 overall. They had a chance to get Murray, the linebacker from Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And I believe his name is Kenneth Murray. And he, to me, looks like is exactly what we needed. Big, strong, physical guy, comes from a great program. He's played for a guy, Lincoln Riley. You've probably heard the name. And I think that also says a lot. And what was interesting to me is the Patriots actually traded the Chargers for that pick. The Patriots traded out of the first round. That was probably another surprise for me too, Nico. in addition to the Packers, that Bill Belichick chose not to take that pick.
I'm surprised he didn't take a quarterback, but I'm not surprised either because I'm still thinking he may tank this year to get Trevor Lawrence.
Well, I think he heard you, Nabil, because I'm pretty sure. I mean, when you mentioned it, if not Trevor Lawrence, maybe Justin Fields.
Yeah.
You know, both of them are going to be available. You could have had Jake Fromm if the kid stayed, maybe. You know.
I mean, he could have had between 5 rounds, but I mean, I was wrong by the Jake Fromm thing, but let's just go into our individual drafts. I mean, if you want me to go first, you know, Cole Kmet was our first pick, which I still thought we could have traded down and gotten him, or traded down and, you know, maybe gotten someone else. I wanted Delpit from LSU. He ended up going to the Browns a couple of picks after we took Cole Kmet. I thought Delpit would have been perfect to pair in with Eddie Jackson at strong safety and free safety. But thinking more about Cole Kmet, I think he could be the tight end that we need. I mean, I'm assuming Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace both collaborated and were like, look, we need a tight end, and this is the type of tight end that'll work perfect for us. And, you know, even though it's not as strong of a tight end draft, Cole Kmet was the best tight end. You know, he wasn't given that high of a grade because, as you know, he was just because he was the best tight end doesn't make him a first round pick.
Right.
Yeah.
Talent. So I don't think he's first round talent, but you know, he was taken where he was. I'm excited about the corner we took in Jalen Johnson. I mean, he was on a top 10 defense in college. Maybe
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason Utah was even in the top 7, at one point the top 4, was because of their defense. And you know, he looks like a legit corner. I mean, he's going to start next year as a number 2 corner across from Kyle Fuller. But hey, if he can develop, you know, he has the size. I think the only reason he fell that low is because of his injury concern.
Right.
And anyone you draft in the second round that late, I mean, they're going to have their works. They're not going to be a perfect prospect. So
Right.
outside of his injury concern, I think he would have been a first round pick. So, you know, I'm excited for him. I think Kmet can be a good player. And, you know, the rest of the players we got, I mean, Gibson, you know, that's a roll of the dice. You know, he could be a great edge rusher. He could just be a special teams player or rotational player. I don't know. I think the corner we got, Kendall Vidler, is going to be our nickelback of the future. I mean, we got Buster Screen right now, but I think after this year, we're going to let him go. And, you know, he's going to be the nickelback going forward eventually. We do have a bunch of other corners on our team that could also take the spot. But, you know, let's see what happens.
So, okay, I a couple of things I want to pepper you with. One, you're a Notre Dame fan. So how do you feel about Cole Kmet going from Notre Dame, which I think you talk about in quarantine and in COVID era, hey, South Bend to Chicago is relatively close. Like I can get really good intel if I've already seen this guy, I know him, I can trust him. But then also, you as a Notre Dame fan, how do you feel about your college guy going to your pro team?
Well, also he's a local kid. I mean, he's from Chicago, so he lives in Chicago. And like Notre Dame is my college-ish team. I don't really have a full college team, but I do like Notre Dame, and you know I don't mind that. Whenever I think of Cole Kmet, I actually think of when they played UGA last year. So there was a touchdown that a player took away from someone else, and that was Cole Kmet. So a player was supposed to be targeted in the back of the end zone, and he thought the ball was overthrown to him, so he just jumped really high.
Yeah.
Ball.
Right by the goal line, maybe, or something.
Yeah. Like, well, that's a pretty cool move. But yeah, I mean, again, I think Kmet can be the guy. Like, supposedly he has comps to like Greg Olson, but at the same time, like that's like the higher comp. He also has comps as well. So, you know, they're saying he needs to get bigger to be a better blocker, but he's kind of a complete receiver right now. More or less need. We need someone who could be in the receiving game. You know, the blocking tight end. You can even just put an offensive lineman out there to be a blocking tight end. So you know, he can play the receiver role, which is what we need.
Yeah. Well, and you know, we talk about tight ends being a security blanket for quarterbacks or inexperienced quarterbacks, and Mitch Trubisky could certainly use more options offensively. You know, I think that was one thing that I personally saw last year where he didn't have a lot of reads to go to, you know, not a lot of great pass catchers. You know, there's another player in the NFL, or at least there was recently, who went to Georgia Southern. Do you know who it is?
Another player that a lot of players went to Georgia Southern, that's the NFL, but putting me on the spot over here, Georgia Southern, another player. I don't know who.
It was Jack McKinnon.
Oh yeah, there we go.
So Jerry McKinnon, a pretty good Georgia Southern guy, you know, in the NFL. So hopefully, I mean, I like to see local guys succeed. Kendall Vilder, you know, this Jalen Johnson kid he talked about from Utah. I mean, we go back and forth like Falcons Bears, and I think that I saw his highlights come up, and I was like, he's pretty good. And when I saw the highlights, I mean, they talked about injury, and of course, that's always going to hurt your stock. So I think you guys might have got a diamond in the rough. It seems like that's probably the player you're the most excited about potentially.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
What about you? Which Falcons draftee are you most excited about?
I think without a doubt it has to be Marlon Davidson. You know, I mean, you talk about what do the Falcons need? Okay, we need a press corner, somebody who can be fast and do all that. Got it. But like, what do we really need? We need a pass rusher, man. Somebody Grady Jarrett can have right next to him and say like, "All right, do this, do that." You know, I think also there's the guy who recruited Derek Brown to Auburn is a legendary high school football coach or recruiter. The name slips me off the top of my head, but he pulled Derek Brown is from Buford, Georgia, you know, and he pulled Brown from UGA to Auburn when he left Athens for Auburn, something like that. And the guy who did that is also the same guy who got Marlon Davidson to go to Auburn too. So when you talk about like heritage and tradition and history and just like programming things, kids who come from a certain background, I think Davidson has it. I heard him talking to 99 the next day, and the radio station where John Michaels used to work, and he said he was up to like 2, 3 in the morning hanging out with his family, whatever. But then he got up at like 6 a.m. and went for a run and started working out already, you know, and that's exactly what you want because he knew that he does. Otherwise, he would be in Atlanta right now, but he can't be doing that. So, but he already hit it hard. And they said, "What do you want to say to Matt Hennessy?" And he was just like, "Yo, let's go." I mean, Marlon Davidson sounds ready. Matt Hennessy, I think, is maybe our diamond in the rough. The thing about him that I wonder is like Cushenberry from LSU was available.
Yeah, I saw that.
And this guy just won a national championship, and he has experience playing in your stadium, and which I think matters to some of these kids. And they passed on him to get Hennessy, but I think you look at the system and you look at like workouts and you know questionnaires and whatever, and Temple. Matt Hennessy's old college coach is now the coach of Georgia Tech, so I think there's a lot of conversations happening there. Does this kid have the aptitude, and is he going to be able to do what we want? So I think that matters. You know, the linebacker they got, Michael Walker, is raw talent. I mean, he can be carved up, and he's only a couple steps away. I mean, again, I would have liked to have Murray with my first overall draft pick, but you got a linebacker that you needed, and Devondre Campbell came from the 4th round, and he was good. And then, dude, the kid from California, pretty long, lanky safety, like physical. AJ Terrell is more like he reminds me of like Robert Alford, but hopefully a little bit, you know, stronger, faster, better technique. I mean, the kid's like 6'1", so he's got the length, and he's got pretty good hands-on boys from Atlanta. Played wide receiver down here, so he can catch the ball if it comes his way. He's played in big games. He's played for big programs, and I like that about him. I also think that, I mean, he just needs to put on size and technique, right? Like, a lot of people had him going in the 1st round anyway, so people thought, oh, he'll fall to the 2nd. But we saw that there were a lot of cornerbacks taken this year, and potentially early, I guess, with Henderson being the only thing that kind of sped things up a little bit, because up until then you were kind of, you know, going with it. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the Falcons are a good job. I'm more excited about the undrafted free agents, actually. I was looking at the highlights, man. They got a kid from Oregon who's a defensive end, and he's like muscular, but he's not big yet, but he's like a good edge rusher potential. I think they actually did get the linebacker from Utah as well. So you talk about how good the Falcons or Utah's defense has been the last couple years, you know, and they got this kid from out there. So I'm excited about that. Okay, sorry, they got a kid from Utah State, the Falcons did, but
As an undrafted free agent?
sorry, what's up?
As an undrafted free agent?
Yeah, they signed 20 undrafted free agents, and there's defensive tackles, another left tackle, you know, a right tackle, and they got some, they got some more offensive help. They got some tight ends too. They got a kid from Baylor, Jordan Williams, which I like, and Bryson Young was a defensive end from Oregon. So I think the Falcons had a good draft when you talk about they didn't give up much up, and they got what they needed, and they have some good young talent, and they also have options now. You have depth, and then you also save yourself some either draft capital, human capital, financial capital by not making trades. You kind of budgeted for this, so I like that.
Okay, so I have a couple questions. First of all, first question goes to Nabil. We have 10 tight ends on our roster.
Down to 9. We just cut somebody.
Another one just got cut. How many? So that's 9 tight ends.
Yep.
Beginning of the season, who are going to be? How many tight ends do we have, and who are they going to be?
We're gonna have 4 tight ends at the beginning of the season. It's gonna be Komet, Graham. I think Shaheen's gonna get cut.
Okay.
Komet, Jimmy Graham. I'm gonna say Broniker and JP Holtz, unless we sign somebody else.
Okay, so those are the 4 tight ends we have on roster.
That's what I'm gonna say. I think Shaheen's gonna get cut.
Okay, I have a feeling 2 health injuries as well, health concerns, but just thought I'd ask. And then the other thing is there a draft pick that I know you both of you guys said the ones you're most excited about? Is there a draft pick that you are disappointed about, or that you kind of feel like you know for sure is not going to be on the starting roster by the time the season starts?
I'm kind of disappointed about the draft pick we didn't make. I mean, Jacob Eason fell to the what was it, the 4th round, the 5th round?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could have traded up and gotten him. I mean, you traded up for an edge rusher in Gibson, but you didn't want to trade up to get Jacob Eason. I mean, maybe Eason isn't the guy, but I think, you know, he's going to develop in Indy. I mean, he went to Indy. He's going to be behind Phillip Rivers, who Phillip Rivers and Eason essentially play the exact same game. And he's going to be developing under Frank Reich, which is going to be a great coach to develop him. I mean, the fact
Sorry,
that
where did Eason go?
he went to Indy.
Indy. Okay, that's right. Yeah, man. I think that's a solid pickup for them. I think it's like if you didn't get Herbert, you got Eason, you know, whoever wanted that sort of deal. And I think Eason in Indy is going to be good, really good.
I mean, and he may just be a backup quarterback. He may not be nothing, but the best way to get a quarterback is, this is a secret, I'll tell anybody. The best way to get a quarterback is to draft quarterbacks. And the fact that the Bears don't draft quarterbacks regularly is a fact why they don't have a quarterback regularly. I mean,
what about like Mike Glennon? They had him in the past. You know, I mean, he was
Traded.
Wow, okay.
When you sign quarterbacks, you're throwing money at the wall. When you're drafting quarterbacks, you're throwing darts at the wall. I'd rather
I like that, Nabil. There you go. This is why I ask dumb questions, because we get smart answers, right?
Asif, what about you? Is there any draft pick that you are disappointed with, or any picks you wish the Falcons had made?
Well, again, I mean, for me, if I was a GM, and if you can see my draft day mug, I don't know if that's a comment that we didn't make earlier, but Kenneth Murray, the linebacker from OU, was on the board for the Falcons' first pick, and to me, that was the obvious choice. I mean, like, you didn't need CeeDee Lamb, who went right after Terrell, but AJ Terrell was mocked to the Cowboys, you know, before the Falcons took him, which is, you know, it doesn't make sense to me. So I would have liked Murray. I think I was really surprised, and I just really want to say this, like the Philadelphia Jalens, you know, because they took two Jalens with their first 2 picks. But the Eagles taking Jalen Hurts, I thought was really cool. I could see him being really, really good in that system because you talk about RPO, which is what Doug Peterson essentially started Carson Wentz on this, or Carson Wentz on this meteor shower thing, and now Jalen Hurts goes in there. I think they have something really good, and they got some good receivers. So I think the Eagles are probably where they want to be. Is like something that stood out to me. And the Falcons, man, I think they did what they needed to do. They got 20 undrafted free agents. I can't be mad about that. And they got a bunch of cheap human capital. I hate to put it like that, but these guys are good. I mean, there's talent there, and they'll get paid. Like, it's a good opportunity, you know?
Yeah.
I will say I think both of our teams, the Bears and the Falcons, didn't go best player available in the first round. They went with need. And I always think when you go with need instead of best player available, that's when you start not, that's when your drafting starts skewing. You need to
Right.
get the best player available. Even
Well,
if you have a linebacker and you have two linebackers in your team, you got to take the best player available or trade back.
and what Sal told me one time too is like that's Bill Belichick's strategy. You take the best player available, which is ironic that Thomas Dimitroff and Scott Pioli weren't doing that for a little bit. But excuse me, Thomas Dimitroff coming from New England, also not taking the best player available. I thought it was awesome though that New England with its first pick in the second round took the kid D2 player who's actually from Georgia. So I thought that was really cool by Bill Belichick. I'll get you the names and details on that. But good draft, man. It's cool to see everybody's house and stuff. They're seeing our house, we're seeing their house.
Draft was fun.
That was awesome. Moving on, in other news, the Bulls have officially signed a new GM. They went with the 76ers assistant GM, Mark Eversley.
Yep.
I think I said that right. He is also in major news. He is also the first African-American GM for the Bulls. So that's cool. Hopefully he can bring us back to the good old days when we were winning championships nonstop. Speaking of, moving on to the last dance.
Did you just fall?
No, I'm just sitting up in my chair, leaning back, sitting up.
Well, one more news. The Blackhawks did let go of John McDonough, who was their CEO and president. So some changes coming in for the Blackhawks. I mean, John McDonough used to be the GM of the Cubs, went to the Blackhawks. I don't know what he's going to do now, but yeah, Blackhawks are making some changes. So let's see what happens with that. But yeah, Last Dance. Okay. I don't know where you guys want to start off with the Last Dance, but I'm assuming both y'all watched it yesterday, right?
Oh, yep. 100%. Yeah.
Carmen Electra is still hot as hell, dude.
Hey, man, I'm not mad that we started there, I'll tell you that, because that's definitely what I've been thinking about the most from last night.
I was like, that's still Carmen Electra? Wow. Dude.
Yeah. She's definitely still very attractive. Also, Dennis Rodman dated both Madonna and Carmen Electra.
Dennis Rodman's his book is pretty intense.
That guy's a stud. Also, there was a scene where when he went to Vegas, if you haven't seen it, spoilers, he goes to Vegas. And he gets off the plane, he's chugging a beer, and like 10 seconds later, you see him drive off on a motorcycle.
Yeah, don't do that. That's not safe at all. We don't recommend that here at all.
Definitely questionable.
I'm going to say those are two different events that were cut incorrectly. We'll go with that.
Hopefully that's the case.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's just start with Dennis. Like, holy crap! Like, I watched a 30 for 30 on Dennis Rodman, but
I need to watch that. So I didn't know there was one. I maybe did and forgot about it, but I need to watch it because I feel like, especially now, I hope ESPN shows it this week.
I mean, the more you hear about Dennis, the more it's just like, one, the person was just a unique individual. And two, like, Jordan called him the smartest basketball player he's ever played with. Like, and they were showing that one part where he studies film to see, okay, Magic Johnson shoots this way, and he assumes the ball is going to spin this way, so he knows where to be for the rebound. But Jordan shoots this way, and the ball is going to spin that way, so he has to be here for the rebound. Like, I just thought people boxed out, but no, they're actually looking at spin rates, like, And
Yeah, well, it's so funny that you say that. Like, quick tangent, but I actually heard that Chipper Jones told, I think it was Mark Teixeira on the bench one time, this guy's throwing the fastball and it spins this way, so hit it that way and you'll hit a home run. And but Mark Teixeira was like, Chipper Jones could literally see which way the ball was spinning as it's coming to the plate at like 70, 80 miles per hour. So for you to say that about Dennis Rodman is fascinating. I think athletics. Dennis Rodman is fascinating to me. I didn't fully have the context. We talk about context is king, or 83 weeks, and Eric Bischoff do that. But it's like I didn't understand where Dennis Rodman played into this dynasty, because I knew he was there for the second three-peat. For the first three-peat, I knew that he was a great player, but I guess like it finally clicked and understood to me that he was part of the Detroit Pistons. So he won 2 championships before going to the Bulls, which I knew that he was a really great player in Detroit too. But to know that he'd been in the league for like 3 or 4 years still before he played for the Bulls, I think is really fascinating, because it shows you in the bill how good he is. Like, he was good enough, as eccentric as he was a great athlete. And I thought it was awesome where Jordan was like, yeah, he came back from Vegas that morning when we had to go get him, and he ran 4 laps around us before we could catch up to him. And so it was just like, Dennis Rodman said, basketball is easy. It's easy. You get paid for the stuff that happens once you leave the basketball court. So what I love about him is that he's a real baller, and like he's just an interesting guy too. I mean, it's fascinating to me. I'm more fascinated by Phil Jackson. I'm a big Phil Jackson fan. I want to read his book, and it was great to see that. I'm gonna have to watch some reruns. I thought it was great though. I'm excited to see more.
Yeah. I mean, none of us were surprised when they said Phil Jackson dropped acid in New York. It's like, yeah, I'm surprised he's not on acid right now. Like,
Well, what's interesting to me? Phil Jackson is 13 championships total, because he has 2 as a player.
Yeah.
And like him and then he and Dennis Rodman seem like outside of fraternity,
Yeah.
And they bonded like that, and that's kind of what The Last Dance shows. So it kind of shows you that, like, as great as Jordan was, and he is the reason all this is happening, there's more at play here than just him and Pippen, It's Dennis Rodman and the timing of that, and Carmen Electra. And also, I think about, too, Jerry Krause broke it up, Will we have Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal in that Lakers three-peat if Jerry Krause didn't do what he did, right?
Very good question. Yeah, who knows? There was just a couple of other things. One, I just wanted to bring up, like, one of the coolest things Phil Jackson ever said. It was during one of his, I think it was like an interview he did after he retired. And the first time, he retired from the Lakers for the last time. And someone was like, yeah, this guy said you're going to be just smoking peyote now all day. And he responded with, yeah, you don't smoke peyote.
Yeah, Phil Jackson's a cool
First, I had
dude.
no idea what peyote was. And
no, that was great, man. I think
the other thing was like how we didn't bring him up yet, Isaiah Thomas, like how he was like the villain. Like the first 2 episodes, Jerry Krause was the obvious villain, and in these 2 episodes, we kind of saw like how Isaiah Thomas was the villain, and how Jordan sees Isaiah Thomas to this day. Like, even to this day, he's like, yeah, he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Well, now that you have a quick thing.
No, go ahead. I was just agreeing with what Bill said. It's just.
Oh, hell yeah. No, what I think is, I thought it was cool on SportsCenter asked where John Sally was talking to Scott Van Pelt, and he said that, like, we walked off the court like that because that's what Boston did to us. That's how the torch was passed in the East, essentially,
That's what Isaiah Thomas said. John Sally actually, he caught wind that they were going to do that. So
and he went back out there, So, like, I think it's great to hear. You have to know both sides, right? Especially when you're John Sally, who knows both sides. So I thought it was good to hear him say that. And what was fascinating to me too is, like, it was cool to see Jordan go through that process from becoming a boy to a man. Like, he got drafted to Chicago when he was like, I don't even know if he was 21. He might have been, But he put on the weight and he got stronger and I heard about the migraine game finally. I didn't know about it until like the morning of that was like a thing. I read the book. I'm going to put it out for y'all next week about like the Bulls dynasty, the first three. And what was fascinating to me too, Nabil, I'll say is that like when the Lakers got to the final, when the Bulls got to the finals and they got past Detroit, they were ready. Like we saw LeBron James, he finally made it to the finals against the Spurs and got swept the very first time there with Cleveland, like 2 or 3 years in. And Michael Jordan got to the finals against Showtime, it past his prime. And they dominated in like 5 games. They won. And I think we basketball fans finally got to learn about Tex Winter, the creator of the triangle offense, who Kobe Bryant talked about in his book at some point, And we're going to see Kobe on next week's episode, I guess, to some degree, because it's talking about, the All-Star team and the All-Star game and the Dream Team. And I like how this documentary is being put together. I think it's great that,
Yeah, so you got a drink because you buffered. So.
Oh, really? Oh, man, I was on the roll there. But, no, Tex Winter is great. We're going to see the Dream Team and all that stuff next week.
Yeah, really, really excited for it. Next week's going to be awesome. I think by next week we're going to have a little bit more draft-like breakdown. We'll have more information on the draft by next week. Maybe we'll have some information on what's coming up with sports in the next few weeks as well. Asif, you had something to say?
Oh, to finish my thought about Jordan, it was fascinating to me that they dominated right from the start. The first 3 years, and then the second 3 was more dynamic in a sense, And the first 3 was them just like young kids, hungry as hell, and they got it. To piggyback off the draft thing, yeah, we're going to talk more about it. We're going to see what happens. What happens now?
Yeah. So another thing that came out today, which could be like a second wave of free agency, after 4:00 today. So currently, right now, any free agent signed does not count against your compensation picks. So we could be looking at Jadeveon Clowney signing soon. We could be looking at a lot of players signing.
Yeah, Eli Apple is still on the safety market. Clay Matthews is still out there. I was looking up who available cornerbacks are when the Falcons took A.J. Terrell and in my perpetual outrage, quote unquote. And great point, Nabil. We'll see.
And one last thing before we go, Asif, where was Thaddeus Moss drafted?
He was not drafted.
Cool. That's a beer.
So, okay, well, I'd be happy to buy you a beverage after this is all over, my friend. I promise you. I would be more than happy to do that. I will say, though, I think that Moss being Moss, Malcolm Butler was an undrafted free agent. People forget this. Some people don't even know that. And
listen, you can say whatever you want. It doesn't change the fact that you were wrong.
Yeah. Well, hey, take it away then, I guess, Yeah.
On that note, thank you guys for listening. Follow us on Bears, Birds, and Brews on Instagram and Twitter. Hope you guys are all staying home, staying safe. Again, support your local businesses, support your small breweries. Continue watching The Last Dance on ESPN. We'd love to hear your draft thoughts. Are you excited? Who are you excited to see? What teams are you excited to watch? What players are you excited to watch develop? Who are your surprise picks? Who are your disappointments? And I think that's it. Wash your hands.
All right. Because you left it. Do y'all know where the first NFL draft was held? This is your Asif's ass.
Chicago.
Asked a couple good questions. Do you know?
Chicago.
Nader, what's your guess?
I'm gonna run with Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Both of those are very good guesses. That's actually Philadelphia. So about, I guess, like 80 some odd years ago, I know this because leading up to the draft, they were showing the draft in which the Bears traded up to draft a quarterback. I don't know if you remember that one. They traded up to draft Mitch Trubisky, and Roger Goodell opened that draft by saying that the first NFL draft was in Philadelphia. So there you go, some trivia for y'all.
There you go. Have a good night. Take care, guys.
Take care, guys. Cheers.